Hello and welcome to the Red Leaf Card, your home for Canadian soccer news and views. My name is Jacob. Today we're going to be talking about the 2025 Canadian Championship and the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup, and also updates on the Windsor Canadian Premier League team of their updates. But since as the Canadian Championship for the 2025 draw has been closed, let's review which teams are going to be facing for the 2025 Canadian Championship. And Valor FC will be versing TSS Rovers for a repeated match since 2024. That will be some heated matchup there. And winner will be versing Vancouver Whitecaps in that matchup. And so this matchup is going to be a great matchup at Prince Motor Stadium. And it brings into this matchup of saying this could be one of the best semi-pro versus pro league matchups for the Canadian Championship in the first round. And there's always some matches out there I could bring up also, but everyone knows this matchup leads to the Vancouver Whitecaps, which is the reigning champs for 2024. And this is going to see if Valor FC wins against TSS Rovers, it will bring in a lot of boost for Valor FC against Vancouver Whitecaps. And it will bring in a lot of popularity for Valor FC. And I think some Valor FC fans should be excited where they are. But as known, they have to defeat TSS Rovers and not be in that embarrassing moment that you lose to a semi-pro league team for League 1 BC again. As Pacific FC versus Vancouver FC, as being a local provincial of BC that they're going to be versing, is the Vancouver Islands versus a team that's outside of Vancouver. It's going to be a great matchup for the first round. And we've seen both of these two teams clash, that they're not really good in the Canadian Championship. Some of them are, but my side would basically say Pacific FC could actually do well in the Canadian Championship, but we just have to see how the roster goes to it. As known, Josh Hurd has signed with Pacific FC. There's a lot to be announced of signings, but we'll have to wait until the new season starts and all these teams to actually make their full roster. So I think it will be a good matchup to see Pacific FC versus Vancouver FC and see how that goes. As known, it's going to be an Alberta rival against Calgary FC versus Edmonton Scottish United. It's going to be their first appearance for League 1 Alberta, and to represent League 1 Alberta, Edmonton Scottish United, it's going to be a good matchup. at Atco Field for Calgary FC, and it brings in that hype for probably for some Edmonton fans out there that misses the FC Edmonton team, and bring up the hype for to see that clash with Calgary versus Edmonton. So that's probably in that list of who is the most watched for this first round matchup. And probably in the Alberta area, yes, this is going to be a good matchup. But Calgary fans out there would say this is going to be an easy one, but it has to remind them it has to go all the way to the final whistle if they could actually win this match. It's because they're going to be versing a team that they actually don't know yet that how they play. So for Calgary FC fans, just basically have to wait until the final whistle for the Canadian Championship for 2025. See how the Edmonton Scottish United team plays. But if Calgary FC dominates, there's nothing to worry about out there. And see how the next round, who you're going to be versing, Pacific FC or Vancouver FC. And Atletico Ottawa versing Skurosopi FC, based in Milton. As known, the League One Ontario team is really hype. Their first appearance in the Canadian Championship. Atletico Ottawa fans believe this is going to be an easy matchup and will move on to the next round. But as known, teams that have their first appearance and want to build up to being a competitive team in the Canadian Championship is that they could bring in some moments that they could be really good or bring in some actual good games. But sometimes Atletico Ottawa is not really competitive in the Canadian Championship. So I think looking how this matchup goes, it could go both ways. So if Atletico Ottawa makes it to the next round, it's actually would be a good plus for them. But if League One Ontario Skurosopi FC makes that upset, it will be probably in their favor to actually move on. But it's also a shocker that on the next round who they might verse, it could be League One Canada team and also a Canadian Premier League team. And that will be York United versus FC Laval. And as known as FC Laval, it's their second appearance in the Canadian Championship. York United also struggles in the Canadian Championship, and York United will be having they're going to be hosting the first round against FC Laval, and a lot of fans would say it will be a competitive match against FC Laval. But can FC Laval pressure York United? That's the question a lot of fans would think about against a team that struggles in this matchup. But I do think that York United will make the next round, and they will be versing Atletico Ottawa in the next round. And Toronto FC versing Club de Foot Montreal. This is not what we see in the first round. And it's going to be a clash of two big teams going after each other in the first round. And a lot of people would think, hey, could it be Toronto FC? Could it be Club de Foot Montreal? And I would have to say Toronto FC. Club de Foot Montreal has been struggling, but Toronto FC has also been struggling. They not have announced a coach yet. John Herdman is out. So if any of those two teams, Club de Foot Montreal or Toronto FC, they will be versing Forge FC or Halifax Wanderers. And speaking about Forge FC and Halifax Wanderers, probably you would say Forge FC and Halifax Wanderers would be leaning to Forge FC to the next round. And it's going to be into their favors for Forge FC. So if I would have to say who would be the favored in the Canadian Championship, I would have to say probably not a great time to actually say it's a favored, since it's a long time. No, all these teams have to announce all their players to be signed, and yeah, some of them don't have coaching staff to even announce it. So right now, take some time to basically predict who could be the winners for the Canadian Championship at this time. 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup has already been announced of the draw, and the Canadian teams who will be versing in the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup in the first round. Vancouver Whitecaps will be versing the Costa Rican team Saprissa. Calgary FC will be versing Pumas, and CF Monterrey will be versing Forge FC. So the Canadian Premier League teams will be versing Liga MX teams, and Calgary FC versing Pumas. Winner will be versing Alouihense in the next round, and Vancouver Whitecaps versus Saprissa. So the winners for the next round, CF Monterrey and Forge FC and Vancouver Whitecaps versus Saprissa, will clash together in the next round. And news for Calgary FC. Calgary FC again will not be hosting at Atco Field. This is again another upset for Calgary FC fans who would have to go somewhere else to cheer on for Calgary FC. And it's like a bad moment for Calgary FC that you can't play on your home field at Atco Field, and there has to be a situation for this, that you have to find a solution that let's play at Atco Field, but it's always the weather that is always in this situation. But sooner or later, probably Calgary FC will find a solution that they'll play on their field in the future. Sooner or later, they will find a way to play some matches in the CONCACAF Champions Cup on their home soil. Hoping the future Calgary FC will find a way in some years and find a better way to actually play at home for some CONCACAF Champions Cup games. But right now, it's not going their way. Speaking of the Canadian Premier League, right now. So we're seeing updates coming in for the expansion team of Windsor, which David Klanikin, who's running the expansion team for Windsor, the Windsor Canadian Premier League podcast, gave out updates that the Canadian Premier League would announce in 2025, probably in the month of January or February. They will announce the expansion team for Windsor, and their home place will be at McHugh Park, and said that their team colors will be scarlet and blue, which there's those updates for Windsor. And I'm glad that when there's some updates coming in for Windsor, but right now those are some updates that were heard, that it'll be in next year, January or February, that they will announce the expansion team, and will be playing at McHugh Park, and team colors will be scarlet and blue. And we're just hoping that those rumors and sources are true for the Windsor Canadian Premier League team coming out. And we're excited that Windsor sources are coming out, but still Windsor does not have a name yet. They will be releasing soon when they announce it, but still waiting for supporter groups out there. But Windsor out there is going to be great, and we hope that a lot of people are still reacting for more expansion teams come out, like Quebec, still waiting for that, and probably more teams out there to come in the future. But Windsor is coming close. And that's full time of the Red League Card. You could follow us on X and YouTube. You could listen on us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Jacob, subbing out.